Madam Deputy Speaker. Hard-working people and families across this country look to a government to show leadership and direction. Never has this place shown such irresponsibility and ineptitude. This was a fantasy budget today. It lets our communities down, it lets the people down, and it lets our country down. Scrambling around for any figures they can to deceiving us into thinking austerity is ending. Thousands of families and cash-strapped councils up and down the country know that austerity is still alive and strong. And in my constituency of Cardiff North, I spoke just last week to a single mother. She works 8 hours a week for the NHS. She has a son with disabilities, and she came to me because she's been underpaid through universal credit again and again and again. It's left her penniless, it's left her in debt, spending hours on the phone, month after month in tears trying to resolve these errors time after time. She's had to consider leaving work because universal credit leaves her worse off. And she's come to me for help. Will the Chancellor tell her how this budget is going to help her and others like her? But because we know that this embedded deep in the universal credit system are deliberate and unfair cuts. So austerity is far from over. And will the Chancellor tell my constituent whether to send another constituent who came to me to bed cold or hungry? Because that's her choice. She can't afford both bills and food. Austerity is far from over. But while this government tells us it's ending austerity, it seeks to continue its chaotic Brexit negotiations, risking crashing out with a no deal, irresponsibly pitching this against Theresa May's miserable deal. We're giving the people a false dilemma here. There is a third way, which would avoid Brexit's hit to our public finances and our economy, and that is a people's vote. The referendum 2 years ago was a protest vote against austerity, against the poverty that we all see in our constituencies up and down the country. And let me be very clear. There will be no Brexit dividend. Whatever the deal, will be worse off outside of the EU. The government's own analysis shows this. And Brexit, we know, is causing uncertainty for businesses and people, communities up and down the country. But for me, also what's striking is the failure to make decarbonisation and clean growth absolutely central to this government's economic plans. This budget comes less than a month after the world's climate scientists have firmly told us that the global economy has just 12 years to virtually halve greenhouse gas emissions if it's to avert dangerous and potentially catastrophic levels of climate change. In this budget statement, there was absolutely no mention of climate change, not one. And if the UK government wants to protect future generations, as it says it does, then this must absolutely come front and centre. Instead, energy efficiency funding has been cut, green levies politicised and prevented, and the cheaper forms of green energy, onshore wind and solar, have been locked out of government funding. And the UK's recycling infrastructure is struggling badly, following underinvestment. So on climate action, the UK government keeps coming up short, time and time again. And the token plastic tax goes only a small way in preventing the devastating tide of plastic in our oceans. The Chancellor bottled out the tax on disposable coffee cups, and unless the whole waste and recycling system is reformed, the plastic waste will continue to pollute. There were no timescales, there was no definitive action outlined. This is clearly a government who does not care about future generations. Madam Deputy Speaker, the fact is this government is in a state of paralysis because their party has spent more time arguing with themselves than negotiating with the European Union. Brexit has swallowed up the Tories' capacity to plan for the future or even acknowledge that people are really struggling because of their cuts and their cock-ups. No one voted for this 2 years ago. No one voted to be poorer in the referendum 2 years ago. The real truth is that whatever the deal Theresa May comes back with will be devastating. It will damage my constituents, my local businesses and communities and people, not only in Cardiff North, but in the whole of Wales and up and down the country. This was a fantasy pre-Brexit budget, and it's clear that this government are unable to cope with it, so there is only the one thing left to do, and that is put the vote back to the people for a final say.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. In my contribution to the budget debate, I want to focus on